We will now move on to the second and third components, where Rashi offers multiple options to a particular text. Thus far, we have looked at the first option that Rashi provides to the statement Ani Hashem Elokechem, namely that Moshe was to convey to Bnei Israel a request that they accept upon themselves not just the sovereignty of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, along with the mitzvot in general, but a specific subset of mitzvot, namely the gzeirot. And these gzeirot are recorded in the subsequent pasukim of this perek. We identified the shortcoming of this option, which was that when the Bnei Israel accepted the Taryag mitzvot at Matan Torah, embedded into those Taryag mitzvot were the Sheva mitzvot de Bnei Noach, one of which was a prohibition against sexual immorality in the form of limiting marriage between blood relatives. The flow-on from this would be that the Gzeirot, and specifically the Arayot, were part and parcel of the Taryag mitzvot that the Bnei Israel accepted Har Sinai, and therefore there would not have been a need for the request from HaKadosh Baruch Hu that the Bnei Israel should now accept upon themselves a commitment to not violate the Arayot laws. For this reason, Rashi offers a second option in which he revisits the accountability interpretation for Ani Hashem Elokechem and argues that on account of the severity resulting from a violation of the Arayot laws, and in particular that these laws would be violated during the days of Ezra HaSofer, there was a need for God to single out and specifically warn against the violation of the Arayot restrictions. Which begs the question that if this be the case, why did Rashi not use the second option and disregard the first? And for this, the Rebbe identifies a shortcoming also with option 2. That shortcoming lies in the fact that it is highly unlikely that with the words Ani Hashem Elokechem that Moshe was to convey to the Bnei Israel, that this would contain a warning of an event that was to take place 1,000 years later. Which brings us to the third component of the multiple options rule. Why is it that Rashi prioritizes option 1 over option 2? In making that decision, Rashi must evaluate which of the two options is more problematic from the standpoint of Pshuto Shel Mikra. The problem with option 1 was that it could be argued that there was no need for a special request that they accept the Gzeirot, as these were automatically included in the Na'aseh V'Nishma of Matan Torah. The problem with option 2 is that it is somewhat far-fetched that Moshe should be forewarning a situation that was not to take place for another 1,000 years. Placing the two options side by side, option 1 is less problematic from the standpoint of the Pshuto Shel Mikra. However, in order to soften somewhat the shortcoming of option 2, Rashi in this commentary goes against the pattern that he uses throughout most of the commentaries to the Chumash and identifies the author of option 2. Phrased differently, there is something about the fact that it was Rebbe who authored the second option that will shed light and soften the harshness of the shortcoming. This we shall look at in the next segment, along with another anomaly, and that is the use of the Nun Taf Kuf Shoresh in connection with the violation of the Arayot laws, rather than the Ayin Bet Resh, to transgress, or the Chof Shin Lamed, to stumble. Both terms used throughout the Torah to describe one who violates a particular prohibition of the Taryag mitzvot.